Hello and welcome to TLJT Talks. Today we are hosting Dr. Akhil Prasad, who is the General Counsel, Board Member and Company Secretary at Boeing India. Sir will be speaking to us on role of civil aviation in defense procurement and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Very warm welcome to you, sir, and thanks for accepting our invitation and coming to the platform.
Thank you very much, Aryaman, for having me here. And I'm really very fond of your institution, which is RGNUL. And when I was in Patiala, what amazed me is the immense interest that students and the faculty had on the aviation sector for India. But great, you have started this forum where it gives us an opportunity to learn on the various aspects of aviation and contribute to some of the questions that your audience has on this very important industry, which is aviation and defense industry.
Right. So, sir, now since you have mentioned about RGNUL, I'd like to thank my teachers also who helped me in formulating the questionnaires. Actually, one of my teachers, Dr. Ibni Palja, she sat down with me and helped me from all these questionnaires, and she got to know that you are coming on my podcast. So yeah.
No, it's very wonderful of her, and in fact, when we started interacting, it was very important for us to have an exchange of people from the industry with the institutions of excellence like RGNUL. And we have been very proud to have associated with RGNUL on some of the a couple of sessions, on aviation industry.
Right. That's great, sir. So we'll start with the questionnaire. So my first question to you is a very general one. Like, what is it? What is like a lawyer to work in an aviation industry?
The very short answer is it's very exciting. And the long story is that aviation in India, has been there since the 1940s. And we have seen various policies of the government. We have seen a lot of infrastructure development. But ever since 2016, we have a new National Civil Aviation Policy. And we also have a Vision 2040 document, which gives a very strong focus on the development of aviation sector in India. And especially, when there was an initiative by the government on the UDAN scheme that every citizen of this country should have the opportunity to fly, irrespective of the economic criteria. It changed the rule of the game. And, then we saw that connectivity to smaller places, smaller cities being connected to larger cities. We have seen a huge push in terms of the government's vision that people should be able to fly like they were able to travel in a bus or they were able to travel in a train. In a similar fashion, there should be a connectivity through air also. So that has really made this industry very exciting because there is so much potential of infrastructure development. Created a demand from all corners, whether it's for development of new airports, whether it's for the requirement of new airplanes. For instance, in today's parlance, if we see the current all India fleet for commercial planes is about 800 planes. But the economic or the market outlook for planes is that in next 10 to 15 years, India will need about 2,500 planes, of which about 60 to 70% will be bought in next 4 to 5 years. So you imagine the opportunity. And if we are then complaining about congestion at airports, we should remember that congestion is only because of 800 planes. And if you will add 2,500 more planes, you can imagine the kind of infrastructure which we will need in a very near-term future. So for an aviation lawyer, I think the demand is from all sides. Whether it's you are working for an airport developer, whether you are working for an airline, whether you are working for an aircraft manufacturer, whether you are working for a aircraft part manufacturer, everywhere, I think the potential is huge. And, we are a 1.4 billion population country, and the local demand will only magnify the opportunities which are there on the aviation side. And thanks to a very strong focus on from the Civil Aviation Ministry and the Vision 2040, that this will only enhance, the new infrastructure, the new opportunities in aviation for India.
Right. Indeed, sir, we all are, getting a chance to fly and all these things. And with your answer, actually a few questions came to my mind, but I'll not go there because then we'll divert from the topic, and we have a span of time to record into. So I'll directly move to our next question with respect to defense procurement. So what according to you is the role of civil aviation in defense procurement?
In defense procurement, you said defense procurement, right?
Right, sir.
Yeah, so defense procurement is governed by a policy which is called DAP 2020, which is known as the Defense Acquisition Procedures. Every 2 to 3 years, Government of India comes up with a new acquisition policy, and that depends upon the various technology developments, the various necessities of the Government of India to shore up its defense capabilities. And that is the reason why the government always have a relook of what was the policy 2 years ago versus what is the policy that should be now. And the current policy is called the Defense Acquisition Procedure, DAP 2020, which is currently aimed at creating a self-sufficiency in defense production in India. So under the previous versions of the defense acquisition, the philosophy of the government was to do a lot of import, because India is one of the largest markets for defense imports, because we have not been manufacturing enough defense platforms in India. So, but now things have changed, and the government's thinking is that we should now achieve self-sufficiency. And that is where, the Atmanirbhar Bharat comes into picture, which is a fantastic initiative. Facilitate manufacturing in India. And that is
Sorry for the disturbance, sir. Actually, there was some internet issue. Yeah, you can.
No worries. So the focus of DAP 2020 from the government is very clear, that it will prioritize how self-sufficiency will be achieved. Therefore, importing capital goods from outside is the least priority. So once Government of India decides, the Ministry of Defense decides what capital goods have to be imported, or what is the need of the Government of India of what capital goods are needed. For example, let's take an example of aircrafts. So if India needs fighter aircrafts, whether India should import fighter aircrafts or whether India should manufacture fighter aircrafts. And the current policy is India will give a priority to manufacture fighter jets in India. And that is where the Atmanirbhar Bharat comes into picture. That whatever aircrafts will be bought by the Government of India, they should be manufactured in India. And one of the important aspects of the policy is that a defense product, if it is to be manufactured in India, it needs to have a very high localization or an indigenization of those products. So 60 to 70% of the aircraft needs to be an indigenous content, which is a very high standard. But the direction is very clear, that whatever we do, we should minimize import, we should maximize manufacturing capability in India. And this is very clearly elucidated in the DAP 2020. The other policy, which is also of relevance, is Defense Procurement Manual, or DPM. And the DPM is a guiding policy for procurement of services. So DAP is for capital goods, DPM is for services procurement. And the services procurement is governed by this policy. There also the preference is to have self-sufficiency for services for Indian companies. And by Indian companies, it is not that if you are incorporated in India, you become an Indian company. It is because there are, on defense manufacturing side, there are restrictions of 49% FDI. But if it is in one category, they have allowed FDI up to 74%, which is by global manufacturing in India. There you can do 74% FDI, but in defense manufacturing, the FDI is restricted to 49%. In services also, they would, and the company, which is an Indian company, is one where 51% or more FDI, 51% or more equity and management control is held by a Indian company, which is promoted by Indian citizens. So there is a difference between what we understand an Indian company under the Companies Act, which is a company incorporated in India. But as per the policy, an Indian company is a company which has 51% or more controlled by Indian citizens, or a company promoted by Indian citizens. So that is the philosophy, that for achieving self-sufficiency or Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Indian company, which is 51% or more owned and controlled by citizens of India, should enter into defense manufacturing, should enter into services. And just imagine the kind of defense expenditure Government of India has planned. If that business goes to Indian companies, it's such a huge business opportunity. So when you ask me the first question, how is it like working for a lawyer for a defense or a aviation company? Imagine the scale, that if an Indian company were to go in for manufacturing or services of defense products, the opportunity is huge. And that is why I very, very commonly say that aviation and defense is the sunrise industry of India. That for next many, many decades, the kind of developments we will see in this industry is par excellence. It's going to be huge.
Right. So indeed, we should work towards achieving an Atmanirbhar Bharat, and promote manufacturing in India. It will keep the Indian wealth within the country, and will work towards generating employment also. But my question here is, among these policies that you talked about, or the government initiatives that you talked about, what ease does the government provide to manufacturers, like in terms of becoming Atmanirbhar? Like, is there some area where the government is helping the Indian companies to just go on and manufacture these services or these crafts in India?
Sorry, the connection was not very good. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, sure, sir. So I was saying that indeed we should work towards achieving Atmanirbhar Bharat, but my question is that what ease has the government provided with respect to these policies and initiatives that you talked about in terms of manufacturing in India?
See, the government's policies are good, because it does facilitate and attract big Indian corporates into defense manufacturing, which they can do by either in terms of developing their own R&D, which is also mentioned in the DAP, and where such companies, say for example, if we have a Tata Group, and Tata Group is developing a tank, for example, and if Tata Group is able to develop a tank on their own, using their own technology, they will be given a priority in terms of selection as a vendor versus to any other foreign company or versus any other company which does not have the capability. So these policies definitely incentivize big corporates, Indian corporates, to put a lot of investment or collaboration or joint ventures or tie-ups, with either Indian manufacturers or with foreign parties to develop that technology in India. And so what will happen, supposingly, hypothetically, if Tata and Boeing were to work together, Tata brings their manufacturing expertise, Boeing brings in their technological expertise, and both set up a joint venture in India to do defense production. It is only thanks to this policy, which is the government's policy. And government has been, a big facilitator in terms of providing clearances expeditiously. And the processes have been simplified. You can incorporate a joint venture very, very quickly. So we have this digital transformation where incorporation of companies is pretty quick. And then various approvals that you require for setting up a manufacturing capability. A lot of those compliances have been put online. There are a lot of processes which have been simplified. Even you will see in the finance bill, you will see that a lot of laws will be rationalized and simplified. So government is trying to, do the effort is there and the vision is there to ensure that there is a ease of doing business in India. The projects which are for aviation and for defense, they are given a priority. And if roadblocks can be removed, which the government is very, very focused on, I'm pretty sure that in next, few years, India will see a lot of good amount of work coming to India or India developing technologies and products on the aviation and on the defense side.
Right. Right. Understood, sir. So my next question is, according to you, what is the biggest challenge? Like there are always some challenges that come up. There is always some lacuna, there is always some gray area. So what, according to you, is the biggest challenge that India might face in, achieving Atmanirbhar in terms of manufacturing in India? Is there something that you think should be addressed, or if there is some policy, some lacuna, anything?
See, my own view is that, if we can look at easing of the FDI relaxations, so what we have seen in other industries. So there are very few industries today where there is a FDI cap. In almost most of the industries, the foreign direct investment limit has been relaxed by the government. Even, this government did its bit, by enhancing the FDI from 24% to 49%. But I think it will definitely enhance investments by international companies if the foreign direct investment element can be relaxed, and there can be a level playing field. Government definitely should have rules to protect the domestic industry, but we have seen, an automobile industry is a very good case where we have seen India achieve a great sufficiency on automobile production. Till about 2 decades ago, we were manufacturing very limited variants of passenger cars and trucks. But if you see today, as the industry has been opened up to foreign investment, and so we have seen, Suzuki investing heavily in India. We have seen Toyota, other big companies. Tata has achieved its own scale in manufacturing of automobiles. I do not see aviation industry or defense industry to be very, very different from what automobile industry has been able to achieve. So my recommendation is that if we give the same kind of a treatment or a similar treatment to a aviation and defense industry in terms of opening up of the sector, I think the development of manufacturing and achieving a self-reliant India will be quicker. And it is a right vision. Perhaps if we open up the sector, like we have done for others, like the automobile sector, perhaps the growth will be faster.
Right, sir. Right. Got it. So, sir, you spoke a lot about the government the initiatives the government has taken to, achieve Atmanirbharta in terms of this manufacturing. But I want to ask you, what is industry doing towards achieving Atmanirbharta? Are we on the road yet? Like, where do we actually start? Sorry, sir. Actually, I think there's some issue with the college Wi-Fi. So,
No worries.
so were you able to hear my question, or should I repeat?
No, you should repeat. There was a disconnection.
Okay. So, sir, I want to ask you that where, as aviation industry, we stand in achieving Atmanirbharta in terms of manufacturing. Like, the government has raised many initiatives. It has come up with many policies. It has opened the market and all these things. But where, as an industry, we stand in terms of Atmanirbharta?
I think we have made a very rapid progress. So the reason why I say that is we have seen big companies like Airbus, Boeing, and other global aviation and defense companies do a humongous amount of procurement from India, both from in terms of parts and components and services. So the numbers are are big, that India is now exporting a lot of components, services, software related to aviation and defense, and that is a very strong indicator of the capabilities that India is able to provide to global manufacturers. See, aviation and defense products required a very high quality, high precision products and services. And it is great that these big companies, they have been procuring from India, which only demonstrates the fact that India is able to develop a very high quality product or service which goes into the supply chain. And India is an integral part of the global supply chain for these aviation and defense companies. So I would say that Atmanirbharta has been is we are going at a different scale by putting a lot of focus on Atmanirbharta, but I think our own domestic manufacturers and service providers have done fantastically well in terms of integrating India to a global aviation and defense supply chain group.
Right. So, sir, I'll move towards closure of this session with this question. So, I have very much interest in artificial intelligence and tech law, and I have written a lot on artificial intelligence, read a lot about it. So, obviously, this question has come to my mind. So, where do you see the aviation industry in the next 5 years in terms of inception of artificial intelligence, be it in commercial flights or in defense sector also?
So artificial intelligence is already playing a big role on the aviation and the defense. If you have seen two major big events last year and the year before last, Virgin Atlantic and Elon Musk's organization both did space travel, Blue Origin, and both these companies did a space travel. And you can't develop a product which goes into space without the use of artificial intelligence. There has to be a lot of customization on artificial intelligence to make these products successful. Then, our own ISRO or, the NASA's, they develop satellites and rockets. These technologies require a lot of artificial. There will be a lot of integration in artificial intelligence with the products and services which are on offer. So I think, and also another technology which is the 3D printing. So 3D printing is completely going to transform the manufacturing side. It will help achieve high quality, minimize waste, and that is the technology for the future. That build to print and 3D technology is it's what this is what is needed for the future. Artificial intelligence will only be a big enabler for future for defense and aerospace.
Right. Got it, sir. So I think we have recorded this podcast, but one question I want to personally ask is, what is your message for aspirants who look to secure a career in aviation industry?
My view is, it will definitely be helpful if you are a lawyer. Many people believe that perhaps a specialization is what is needed, but I think what is needed most is your approach to be a lawyer, to be able to interpret the issue. Your interpretation should be strong. So if you are a good lawyer, it is not only about aviation industry, but any sector, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's manufacturing. A lawyer should be able to adapt to any situation and any client's requirement. So if we are practicing, some lawyers specialize, but there are certain lawyers who are generalists. So it is better to be a general lawyer. And if you are a general lawyer, you will be successful in any industry. But when you are with a particular industry, say for example with aerospace and defense, you will need to learn the business of your client. And that is not only true for aerospace and defense. For any business that you join as a lawyer, you have to understand the business of your client. And that understanding of business is very, very critical. So as a lawyer, be good on interpretation of law and the application of law, and after understanding the business of your client. And you have to, offer and provide advice which will enable the business. So a business lawyer, a business enabler is what is expected from a lawyer in today's world.
Understood, sir. So thank you so much for this insightful session. And, we got to learn a lot about aviation industry per se. And I'd like to host you sometime in future also on some other topic. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Aryaman, for having me here, and wish you the very, very best.